Thanks for being here. This week, the world marked World Environment Day, and the spotlight is firmly on one of the most pressing environmental threats of our time, plastic pollution. With the theme Ending Plastic Pollution Globally, this year's campaign is a wake-up call to government, corporations, and individuals alike to take urgent and meaningful action to reduce the harmful impact of plastic waste on our planet. From our waterways to our food systems, plastic is everywhere. But so too is the momentum for change. Our correspondent Bettina Nwelih takes us through the key messages and urgent call to action from experts and advocates.
We'll try to bring you that report.
We don't have that report at the moment, but we do have our guests with us in the studio.
Oh, yes, indeed. We're going to be joined by two guests. The very first is an environmentalist, and also we do have a climate resilient guest as well. So that's Deji
Akinpelu and David Omaghomi. Did I get that?
Omaghomi.
Is it Omaghomi?
Yeah.
That's what I had here. Okay, thank you very much for joining us. All right, I think we have the package from our colleague, Bettina Nwelih. Let's take it, and then we'll come to our guests in the studio.
Every year on the 5th of June, World Environment Day is observed globally. But here, the challenges remain. Plastic cans and plastic bags litter the environment right behind me for as far as the eyes can see.
The theme for this year's World Environment Day is Ending Plastic Pollution Globally. With the Republic of Korea serving as the host country, there has been emphasis on the urgent need to address plastic pollution, which continues to threaten ecosystems and human health worldwide.
The environment is a continuum. The boundary between Nigeria and Ghana, for example, could be physical, but the environmental boundaries are not physical. So whatever is happening here in Lagos, Nigeria, can be of impact in Ghana, Togo, and our neighbors. So there is need for a regional approach to it.
Environmental scientists warn that over 40% of the world's ecosystems are under severe stress, while experts add that with coordinated action, natural systems can recover, offering protection against climate change.
Ban on styrofoam, single-use plastics are shining examples of what government can do. However, other things that need to be done include governments being more conscious of the lobbyist activities of plastic producers and manufacturers. It's important that governments becomes conscious that when they get supported by plastic manufacturers, they may be form of inducements, or they may be form of incapacitating governments not to take policies that can, quote unquote, put them under business challenges.
The Nigerian government is also taking steps to combat plastic pollution through policies aimed at reducing plastic waste and promoting recycling. However, experts say more needs to be done to achieve lasting change.
We can embark on a massive, planting of trees, because we know the values that are associated with trees. They attract what we call microclimate. If you have trees in an area, you will see that even the precipitation, the amount of rainfall, that the area will receive is actually, in most cases, is higher than where they don't have trees.
As World Environment Day reminds us, the environment isn't just a global issue, it is local responsibility. So whether you're just picking up plastics from the ground or pushing for policy change, every action counts. In Abuja, for News Central, Bettina Nwelih.
And many thanks to Bettina Nwelih for that report. And now joining us live in the studio, we have with us Deji Akinpelu. He's an environmentalist and policy advocate. Also joining us is David Omaghomi. He is a climate resilience expert, and they both will be giving us an site to commemorate what we're discussing today. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining us. We appreciate you for coming on. Now, we have seen Bettina's report there, but I want to start with you, Deji. We've heard the warnings for years regarding plastics and just what the plastic pollution will mean for the human race, but it still persists. I'm of the opinion and the theory that corporations have not done their fair share when it comes to taking the burden. Why does it persist?
Okay, so why does it persist? Maybe there's a politics around plastic, you know. So like you rightly mentioned, corporations doing their own part is very, very important. So the framework that has been laid in terms of policy is that plastic producers ought to have producer responsibility organizations called PRO. And in Nigeria, we have a PRO for the plastic corporations. So what is expected is that those corporations join this association and they make financial contribution towards the recall of plastics. While we may not be able to achieve an immediate ban, it is very, very important that these organizations come together under a group and then they begin to call back, be responsible for the end of life of the plastic that they produce, which is called the extended producer responsibility. Now, where does government come in? You need to put in place the necessary policy that compels this group of people to engage in the recall of the plastics that they produce. Now, the question is, do we have that policy? Do we have a legislated framework that compels these corporations, one, to first of all join the association, secondly, to make the necessary mandatory contribution, thirdly, to meet their targets? So NESRA, which is the federal body that is responsible for this, as far as I'm concerned, as much as I know, there's no serious policy implementation. What we still do is just to come
every
together.
COP23, every COP28.
Yeah, and have a party with these corporations, you know. So it's the big question. And in a city like Lagos, when you say, oh, we are banning single-use plastics, and the big elements of this plastic, which is PET bottles, sachet water, we are saying, no, we are not banning. So what exactly are we doing? The Lagos plastic policy, for instance, has been in formulation for years, for up to 3 to 4 years. And then what we are hearing now is, oh, you are trying to implement. But the big item, the PET bottle, who is legislating that it is compulsory for the makers of these bottles to join their producer responsibility organization and to begin to pay for the recall of these items?
Are they not currently?
So it is voluntary. So they do it at will. So you hear of beach cleanups, you hear of the PRO is...
Does that mean we don't have like a law or policy around that?
We don't have any legislated policy that compels you as a as a plastic producer to join a PRO. You don't have to join. You can, plastic producers can come, 3 of them can come and form one, another set can form another one. Interesting. You understand? But but we have to legislate it. So what you have is, I don't want to say cosmetic because I don't want to a bit offend them, because on the side of the producers, I think they are aware that there's something called extended producer responsibility. But the producers will tell you today that, why do you expect me to be, to give you reports, for instance, of what we've collected? There's no law mandating me to make it public. But that's what it's supposed to be. Oh, we produced 10 million bottles this year. We've called back 500K or something.
I mean, you're just trying to be polite there. It is what it is. If it is cosmetic, it is cosmetic, because we still have this situation. But let's bring in David and just talk about Lagos is a unique place for many reasons. You know, we take things a little different. I mean, I've not heard in other parts of Nigeria where we have at least the efforts to stop the use of plastic and all of that. What's your assessment of the current state of the, you know, how plastic is impacting our environment here in Nigeria and the efforts to mitigate it and recall some of them?
Okay, so the plastic menace is now becoming more alarming than we've always thought it was, particularly as research showing plastics in the clogged arteries of brain stroke patients these days. So it's now becoming more a menace than, just its impact on the environment. Lagos is a shining example, I must say, with respect to leading the charge in policy formulation, at least better off than the federal government and better off than many other states. However, one of the high points, like Deji had mentioned about the extended producer responsibility, would be a production, altering production to make plastics have a biodegradable component. So I would want to look at two parts of it. One would be production change, where plastic manufacturers need to start considering the plastics degrading themselves by altering the composition, I bet at a bit more cost. The use of biodegradable components will help reduce the waste life of plastics. So they could naturally just degrade rather than being out there in the environment for decades. Secondly, would be to drive more policy around monetization of the recalling. So it's one thing for the producer to not or to voluntarily join an association. It's another thing for the society to feel incentivized. So if we're having issues with, compelling producers to join the association or commit to reporting their recollection efforts, it would help if, government concentrates on revenue from recollection activities. Right. By being able to put a fee, say for every PET bottle, there is a 10 naira or 5 naira or 50 kobo or 50.
But I think that's already in operation at the moment. You see people collecting it and selling it?
Yeah, it's private sector led.
Yeah.
So it's private sector led.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's still private sector led, NGO led, voluntary, and most of the plastic producers, for lack of a better word, tend to use this type of opportunities to greenwash their activities. Less than 10% of the amount of plastics being manufactured is being recalled. So regardless of how much fanfare is around this type of celebrations, beach cleanups, activities, right? The amount of plastic that is still left requires either manufacturing change, production change, banning use of plastics in the current form. So enforcing biodegradable components during production of plastics.
Right.
So a large percentage can degrade on their own.
No.
And then two is incentivizing the recollection by government. Like Deji had mentioned, what is existing now is private and NGO sector led. If government enforces it, the waste to wealth part of plastic recollection now becomes very vibrant, and the hunger in the land can even be reduced, because when people can see wealth in plastics, I think with the hunger in the land, so to say, plastics will disappear.
Now, so from what I ascertain from the both of you, it's very clear that this is just lip service when it comes to the corporate world itself, and that there's not enough accountability or transparency, or one would say holding them, right? So I want to ask you, Deji, you are the one who raised this. How then can we hold them accountable? How then can we see real change? Because you just outlined all of the changes that could happen, right? From using biodegradable products to, incentivizing it by the government, and also to recall, if not more, 90% of those plastics back. But with all of this, these are already available. These are things that they're talking about in these conferences. Those are things that they've been calling for yourselves and other NGOs. How can we enforce that real change?
Enforcement is, first of all, through legislation. So the picture we've been trying to paint here is that everybody, you do what you want to do. The producer does what he wants to do. The association do what they, but there is no law compelling them. The PROs, one of the PROs is opening two centers, two recyclable collection points across the city. If tomorrow morning they wake up tomorrow morning and they say they are no longer doing, there's no law, there's nobody compelling them. So in the extended producer responsibility plan, you will always have to give them a target annually to say, okay, this year you're collecting 5%, next year you're collecting 10%. So you begin to make progress. So what we are doing becomes measurable. What we are doing right now is not in any way measurable. You cannot hold anybody to say you must do this. So in terms of design, which product, there was one plastic producer who changed color just to meet the market, what will work better in the market for recycling. So where it lies is the fact that you don't have the legal framework that compels these people to do what they need to do. Banning is not the first step, which I've seen government try to do, particularly in the city of Lagos. It's not always for you to, first of all, get to a point and say, effective July 1st, we are banning.
And then you don't provide alternatives, which is what's killing me,
so
right?
the process. So like you mentioned, redesign your product to become biodegradable materials. However, they can't start tomorrow. Right. But there's something that we can start tomorrow, which is to say in the next 365 days, we are compelling you to, when we talk about pricing, for instance, so for a very, very long time, the prices of plastic in the city of Lagos, for instance, goes up and down. Somebody sits down somewhere in the morning and decides and say, okay, this is how much. Fair plastic pricing is one of the advocacy where government needs to come in. The private sector, they are doing what they need to, they are doing their business, but how will government intervene to say, okay, make sure the value of what people are, when you are recycling, is the right value that you are getting. So these are some of the things that you need to put in place. It's the ideology and the thinking about banning is not it. Look, their framework. Lagos has a plastic policy in draft that sets all this framework, but you take one item, which is probably like supposed to be the last action.
And then you take it as first, misplaced priorities.
You're not setting the targets, the tone right. Let them pay for whatever they are contributing right now. Let people get value for it. Take, for instance, tires. Tires in the city of Lagos, you find out that you may find it very difficult just to see tires lying around because it has become an item of value. Immediately waste becomes an item of value, you see people grab it.
Right, so over minus. But the thing about legislation, one thing, is also enforcement. Enforcement, and Africa itself, I mean, if you go to the first world, they don't have an issue with enforcement, but here enforcement is a big problem, right? But earlier you raised something very important, David, and that was not just the climate part of it, but the health concerns and what we're seeing and the trends, with the spike of health issues that are caused by plastics, microplastics. But I want to focus on climate resilience and how important it is, right? The plastics are clogging our waterways, they're clogging our gullies and gutters. Should the environmental sanitation be brought back in all of the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory?
I think that the environmental sanitation should be brought back.
Will it do anything?
It will go a long way,
Yeah, because in Lagos that time in the 90s, when you pack the thing and you put it out, rain will come and push it back inside.
Even now, they will do a good job, and then it will sit there for days, and then before you know it, it washes back
inside.
So I think I would want to first loop into what Deji had said earlier on. In an economy or in an environment like this, I would want to support the ban first. We need to first outlaw these things. There's been a lot of conferences, workshops, talk shops, annual celebrations, stakeholder meetings. And if government doesn't start by banning it may be the last. You may need to create a lot of changes. But we kind of in Africa tend to, react from the back. So I think banning it is a shining example as to where government should be starting from, so that producers, people, individuals, small businesses understand that this is an illegal activity. Okay. We've seen reports of businesses going to dump waste on the roadsides. We have residents living in highbrow neighborhoods putting waste in their boots and then dumping it right on the highway. So I don't know, we have a mental issue.
Yeah, I mean, we know our problem. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. So let me come in a bit. So in terms of banning, why can't we ban PET bottles and sachet water? Why are they becoming an exemption?
Thank you.
Now,
it's capitalism.
You can't ban sachet water because of your own failure as a government.
Without being able to provide clean water.
Clean water. It's a phenomenon that grew over time.
Right.
You understand? It's not even practicable. You can ban straws. You can tell people bring your bags,
to shopping malls.
You can do all that. So, but what I'm trying to say is, what are you doing about the composition of plastic, PET bottles, sachet water? They are the real, not straws, and the minute part of it.
Okay, let's explore that conversation, because we're looking at solution long term. Yes, we have the temporary ones, you know, ban it, do this, but you said something that I really want you to expand on. Altering the composition of plastics. Is this something that is practicable and doable in Nigeria across board? Because most of the things we're talking about is only very rampant in Lagos. You know, you have take your bag. I don't hear it from other states. You know, so across board, will this be something practicable?
Can I just say something very quickly while you ruminate on that question? It's the fact that it's plastics just sitting down here. Your phone pouch is plastic. The biro is plastic. Your glasses, the frame is plastic, right? And so plastic has now been integrated in our everyday life, that we seem to forget that it's not just the PET bottles and the pure water and the plastic bags that we use to carry our groceries, but it's also the pill bottles that has, you know, this thing. It's also the inhaler, the cartridge.
Yeah, but we have to start somewhere.
It's also the makeup, you know, your makeup case. It's a lot, right? And so it's so much integrated into our lives that how can that altering the composition of the plastics can integrate in every of those sectors?
Okay, I'll shoot on two fronts. First is production modifications. There is no two-way about it. And research, there is abundant research that has shown that plastics can degrade, or packaging solutions can be made with part biodegradable elements that help them break down rather than just sit over in our oceans and our drains for hundreds of years. So government's biggest win could come from enforcing, including in the legislation, production modifications, being intentional about the composition of materials used in plastics. It's far cheaper to create plastics that live longer. Very ironic, right? And then this research that is now available, it just makes common sense that we do as much as we can to change whatever we have on the table. That's the first fix we can start with. And then secondly is the integration of plastics into our lifestyles. You know, the plastic menace was as recent as the 1950s. And I think advertising, I think marketing, I think guys like you need to consider. When I mean guys like you, I'm talking about the media needs to consider the labeling options against plastics. Right. Just like you have on cigarette packs, this will kill you. Just like you have, you know, enforcing certain type of labeling, we need to begin to, will I use the word, shame plastics or make people more aware, because we seem to have forgotten, you know, what plastics really are. Plastic is now branded as lifestyle. Yeah. It's now branded as part of being human.
Your smartwatches.
Your bags, your everything.
Yeah, so just like yesterday we were talking about something, and I'm one for environmental health, but we're talking about something, and Judith, you mentioned let's ban the internet.
Like delete the internet.
That's a dream. And I'm being a realist here. It will be impossible to eradicate it completely.
Correct.
That is my view. Yeah. But there are things we can do to minimize the impact, and you've suggested one that I really think, you know, deserves some attention. But there's something else you said, and legislate. What would a legislation on environment, not just on pollutants like plastic, but legislation for our environment here in Nigeria that will be not just paperwork, but something we can use?
Yeah. So legislation doesn't solve the problem entirely.
I know it's, but let's have the laws. Do we have
first
them?
of all, even have the law, then I can make my demand. So as an advocate, I can't harass the PRO and say, give me your callback report. Well, your target was 5 5% for this year. The PROs look at you and say, what are you saying? There's no law compelling me. You have no right. I have sent my report to NESRA. I don't care. It was later on the PRO, out of being nice, decided to start publishing their reports. You get, so the legislation gives you what to ride on. As of today, everybody is free to do whatever they want to do. And legislation will also help us begin to source for the right funding to strengthen the ecosystem, particularly the informal workers, for instance. These guys who go on the street who are picking up plastic here and there.
My favorites, the urban miners. The
urban miners. Rather than stigmatizing them, and of course in Lagos now you find the phenomenon of under the bridge, you see some people packing plastic clusters there. Then the next thing you see government do is that though they are not supposed to be there, you push them out. You are destroying that system. You are not putting the necessary structure that needs to enable the informal. So when we talk about this plastic waste, and you've not spoken about the informal guys and strengthening them, that's what the legislation would do. Compel them to make the finances that is needed available to strengthen that network of group of people who are doing so much in collection while we work towards an eventual banning.
Right, Deji, I hate to cut you, right? But
no problem.
The urban miners, in my view, is an indication of what's wrong with the third world or developing countries, which is, the poverty line, but most importantly, our recycling culture, right, and our waste management culture as individuals and as communities. Are we ever going to get to a point where we see in Asia, in Southeast Asia, like Japan and China and Korea, where individuals and homes and communities are actually recycling the right way? They are sorting out their waste, and offices, and corporate companies, they're sorting out their waste, paper, plastic, bottle, and, human fecal matter. And they're separated in a way where we don't need the urban miners, and if the urban miners have to work, it wouldn't be on the roads, it would be at the dump site.
At the dump site or at the collection point.
At the collection point.
Or they become collectors.
And they become collectors with the uniform, and there's like a proper
immediately you put the right value to an end-of-life product, and people know that if you go to, everybody keeps saying Lagos, you go outside Lagos, you're having a party. Before you know it, somebody just comes and grabs your plastic bottle.
Facts.
Have you seen that?
Facts.
Have you seen house helps at home? The way you're using they are packing.
No, when a cleaner comes around.
Girl, it breaks my heart that that's what she does. A little girl, you see her with a uniform each time, so now I collect my bottles and wait for her just to give it to her, and she's so appreciative.
My cleaner is that one.
So immediately you begin to let people know that there are so many electronic products that people have now that are broken in their homes.
And there are people who cut away with it, and
so people don't want to even dispose it because the right value they're not going to get for it. Right. So you just put it.
But what about the individuals in terms of sorting this plastic? Because we're out of time.
Yeah, immediately individuals know that they're going to get good value for what they are trying to sort out. Or we get to a point whereby your food waste, which makes even 50%, is of value. It is the value. That's why I kept on saying that fair pricing system is something that government needs to look at in the immediate. Let us compel the producers to bring back this product at the right price.
Are we going to get white bin, red bin, green bin in workplaces?
We've tried to do that in the city of Lagos, and I'm studying that it has not worked.
Is that why? That's what I'm saying.
Well, because we have our own culture, our own way. Take, for instance, now, what happens these days is that the PSP truck comes into your community, and those guys who come to pick, right from your bin, they are the ones doing the sorting. Because when they get to the dump site, they are able to just quickly they've sorted it out from your homes as they were packing it, and they get the money for it. So on households, immediately they begin to know that if I sort this thing and these guys come, and I'm giving it to them at a value. So people are we are paying to pick up our waste, whereas somebody should be paying to come and collect my waste.
I need David to speak a bit. I know we're out of time, but I just like your thoughts on, we've talked about legislation, and we've talked about altering, and of course, we talked about bringing back sanitation, but are there other solutions, or is there a working initiative in Nigeria that could be replicated, like what Lagos is doing with the plastic? Take your stuff, take your own bag to the supermarket, to collect your stuff. Is that something that, we could do across board?
So awareness is also a big problem. You see people going to eateries, getting superstores and getting 5 packs, single-use plastics for 5 different items.
I cannot mix my goosey and
I most times freak out in trying to explain to the waiter, that you can't give me 1 nylon for my toothbrush, 1 nylon for my brush, 1 nylon for the toothpaste.
Yeah, but I bought jig now.
And the reaction they give to me is, you are 1 out of a lot of a million, because we have educated people who come here and scream at us. So awareness is a big problem. Curriculum, infusing environmental responsibility into curriculum from little ages is very important. Social education systems, the sanitation, compulsory sanitation, and more importantly now, better enforcement of laws. Because we've always had all the laws, but the problem is enforcement. So now that Lagos has started banning, it's important that other states look at regional activity, because the environment is a continuum. And most of the waste that gets out into the ocean are from land-based sources. So the plastic you see in Lagos are not necessarily always generated in Lagos. They've come all the way from Kogi, Lokoja, and all parts of Nigeria. So regional activity or action is better.